Hello dear DSC candidates, welcome back to my Grammar for Success channel. I am Koresh Babu, a retired lecturer in English from Hyderabad. In today's video, I am going to teach you about the types of reading. This methodology aspect is very important from your examination point of view. Therefore, I request all of you to pay a very good attention to this video till the end without skipping it in the middle. Thank you so much. Now let's get into the video. Types of reading. Okay, this methodology aspect is very important for your DSC examination. Okay, a few introductory points I would like to give you here. One of them is understanding various types of reading. You know, there are various types of reading. There are varieties of reading, and they are all essential for achieving desired results. If you want to achieve some definite result, you have to choose one of the types of reading. Okay, according to that type of reading, you will reap its result, you will get its result. So that's why there are various types of reading, and all are very essential for achieving desired results. That is the first point. And next, each type has its own specific purpose. So each type of reading has got its own specific purpose. Okay, so each type of reading is meant for some definite purpose, some specific purpose, and it has got some context and approach also. So context means according to the context only you take up or you choose that type of reading. Okay, and approach for getting good results, you choose some certain definite approach. So here each type of reading has its own specific purpose, context and approach. So these are the two important introductory points about these types of reading. Okay, and now let me go into the details of the types of reading. The first one here is skimming. What is this skimming? So reading for gathering the most important information quickly is called skimming. That means through this type of reading you gather the most important information very quickly. Okay, very speedily, very fast. That is the point. Okay, and it is usually done through focusing on headings. While this kind of reading, what do? We just focus, okay, on headings, on subheadings, introductory paragraphs, summary sections, without reading every word. This is very important. So without going through each and every word of that given text, you only go through the headings, the subheadings, the introductory paragraphs and the summary sections. So that is only the thing you do in this type of reading. Okay, so this reading is therefore called skimming. Reading faster, reading quickly, that is there. So that is there. Now let's move on to the next type of reading. Second one, scanning is there. This is yet another very important type of reading, and here you pay attention. In this variety, what do? We read for locating specific information or details. Okay, we read for what? For locating specific information, for definite information and also specific details. So this kind of reading is called scanning. Okay, and here when do we take up this reading means whenever we search for a particular fact or date or some statistics or what is that, some reference. So for searching for these things only we go for this reading, and it involves the movement of the eyes quickly down the page looking for keywords and phrases. And how do we read for getting specific information means we just move the eyes quickly down the page. We just look that like that. We just move the eyes quickly down the page looking for keywords or phrases or whatever the things you are searching for. So for that purpose, there is a big passage, and what do? So just you read, you just move your eyes very quickly down the page in order to find out that specific or particular fact or date or statistics or reference. So that is why this type of reading is therefore called scanning. This is a very important type of reading. Okay, and now you go to the next one. What is that? Extensive reading. Extensive reading, the name itself tells you that reading longer texts for enjoyment. You see, for reading longer texts, okay, for enjoyment, to get a general understanding of a topic, so it's called extensive reading. So the type of reading that you take up for enjoyment's sake or to get a general idea of the topic or general understanding of the topic. So for these two things we read lengthy texts or longer texts. So that kind of reading is called extensive reading. So that is simple. What happens in this reading means it requires you to read at a comfortable pace. Okay, in this type of reading, how do you read? You read at a comfortable pace. Pace means tempo or speed, without focusing too much on every word. So without focusing on each and every word of the given text, you just read it at your own convenient, comfortable speed. Okay, that is that. And here it is usually done while reading novels. So how do you read the novels? How do you read the short stories? You just read them at your own pace, at your own convenience, at your own comfort. Okay, that is like that. Or news articles, newspaper articles are also there, and reports. Okay, certain reports are to understand the main ideas. You read novels, articles, reports only to understand their main ideas or main themes and all that. Only for that purpose you read all of them. When that is the case, you read all of them at your own comfortable pace. So that is called extensive reading. Now let's move on to the other kinds of reading. Fourth one, intensive reading is there. Extensive reading is elaborate reading for enjoyment's sake or to find out the idea of the topic, something like that. And this is intensive reading. Intensive means in-depth reading, detailed reading, something like that. The title itself tells you that one. Extensive reading is meant for longer texts, okay, but intensive reading is meant for only short texts. Okay, right. Reading short text thoroughly, this is important. Thoroughly means through and through, or totally, or completely, okay, to gain detailed understanding of the topic. Okay, why do you read that passage thoroughly? Means to gain detailed understanding. You want to understand the whole passage or the whole text thoroughly well. If you read any passage thoroughly to get some detailed idea about that passage or text, that kind of reading is called intensive reading. Okay, and here you pay attention. In order to do so, you need to read the text very carefully and critically. In order to get a detailed understanding of the text, what should we do? We need to read the text very carefully and very critically. Very carefully we have to read it, very logically and all that. So you have to read it very carefully and logically, focusing only on understanding the details and the nuances. So just you will be focusing on understanding the details of the passage, first point, and also the nuances, the different meanings that conveys, because sometimes you have to read in between the lines also. Okay, reading between the lines means the internal meaning is there, subtext. Okay, so the external meaning is something, the internal meaning is something. So understanding all those nuances, you have to read that passage. So this is all about intensive reading, right? And this type of reading helps you when studying for exams. When you are preparing for the examination, for example, now you are preparing for DSC examination. How are you preparing? You are preparing very carefully. You are going through each and every topic very carefully, very critically, trying to understand the whole matter, the complete matter, isn't it? So you are that's why this is very important and helpful only when studying for exams, analyzing literature, even for analyzing literature also, because you are analyzing that poem, you are analyzing that passage. So for doing such things and reading technical manuals. Technical manuals are there, okay? So you also read them very carefully, okay? For examinations, you read the text very carefully. And for analyzing literature, you read very carefully. And for reading technical manuals also, you need to read very carefully. So in this way, this intensive reading is very, very important. Okay, now let's move on to critical reading is there. What is this critical reading? Let us see that. Reading for evaluating the credibility and validity of the text. So sometimes what happens, you want to find out the validity and the credibility. You want these two things of that text. So at that time, you read for evaluating whether the matter you are reading is credible or valid. So you want to see that. So therefore, for the validity and credibility of the given text, we go for this kind of critical reading. And here you pay attention, it involves questioning the author's purpose. Okay, you question the author's purpose. Why did the author write this text? What is the purpose behind that text? So all such things, you will be posing in your mind. Okay, and the evidence provided, and what is the evidence the writer has provided in that text to substantiate or to prove the validity of that text. All such things you will be observing very carefully, and the conclusions drawn, and what are the conclusions that the writer has drawn at the end of that passage. So all these things you observe very carefully, and observing all these things carefully, you will be reading that passage, and that kind of reading is therefore called critical reading. Okay, and you go to the next point. It is used when reading academic papers. Academic papers means theories, laws, and all those things are there. News articles are there. Any material where the argument and evidence need to be assessed. So all these things, academic papers, news articles, any other material where the argument and evidence need to be assessed. You want to listen to the argument made by the writer in that passage, and you want to see the evidence for his argument. These two things you want to find in that passage. Therefore, you will be reading that passage very critically. You'll be reading that passage very carefully, evaluating the credibility and validity of that particular text or passage, right? And now let's move on to the other types of reading. Analytical reading is there. What is this analytical reading? Let us see that. Reading while breaking down complex text into their components to understand the structure and meaning is called. So in order to understand the structure of that passage, meaning of that passage, what do? You break down that entire passage into components, okay, into small blocks and into small components. Why do you break down the complex text into points or components? Means only to understand the structure of the text, the meaning of the text. So only whenever you can break that passage into pieces, and then only you can understand the meaning of the entire passage. So because it is a very difficult text, okay, it's a very complex text. So that's why this kind of reading is called analytical reading. Okay, and next point about this is it involves taking notes. What do? You take notes. Okay, while reading the passage, you will be taking down the notes and highlighting key points, important points you will be highlighting, and then asking questions about the content. So all these things you will be doing while reading that passage, that complex text. So that is why it is called analytical reading. And one more important thing is about that is it is usually done especially when studying complex subjects. Complex again means very difficult, okay, very difficult, right? You know that very well. So only in the case of very difficult subjects like philosophy, science, literature that require deep understanding. So in order to understand those tough subjects, we go for this kind of analytical reading, because these subjects require deep understanding. Without understanding the subject properly, you cannot do anything. You cannot move forward. That's why, so in order to understand this subject, philosophy, science very deeply, very thoroughly, we have to therefore go for this analytical reading. Okay, that is there. And now let's move on to the other kinds of reading. Seventh one, reflective reading is there. What is this reflective reading? Reading the text to relate it to your own experiences. Okay, you are reading the text to relate that text to your own experiences and knowledge. That is called reflective reading. Okay, right. And here it involves pausing to think about the ideas presented. So this kind of reading involves pondering over. Okay, pondering over the ideas presented in that passage and how they connect to what you already know. So how they connect to things that you have already known or something like that. So this kind of reading is called reflective reading. So in this reading you ponder over the ideas presented and you also see how they connect to what you already know. So that is very important, and this type of reading is essential while studying philosophical works, self-help books, any text meant to inspire personal growth. So Yandamuri Veerandranath's personal growth books are there, and personal growth books are written by various persons are also there. Okay, and if you want to understand all of them, if you want to apply those ideas presented in that book to your life, so you have to read that passage very carefully. So that kind of reading is therefore called reflective reading, right? Speed or fast reading is there. The title itself tells you what it means. In this kind of reading, what do we do? Reading with speed while maintaining comprehension. Comprehension is important. Comprehension means understanding the topic or subject. So that's important. Reading any subject with speed while understanding that passage or while maintaining the comprehension is therefore called speed reading or fast reading. Very simple. And another point about this is it makes use of techniques like chunking is there. Chunking means reading the text pieces wise, not word by word, line by line, some not like reading something, taking parts by parts, pieces. So something, it's called chunking. And minimizing subvocalization. Minimize subvocalization means the process of inaudibly articulating speech using speech organs. These are the speech organs, very well. Our voice comes from this throat with the help of the vocal cords, mouth, teeth. All these are called speech organs. So here subvocalization means the process of inaudibly means not being able to be heard by others. Not being able to be heard by others. That's called inaudibly articulating speech. It says your lips only will be you can say moving, but your voice will not come out of that. Okay, the sound will not come out of your mouth. That is called subvocalization. Okay, and you will be reading something like that. And that is one kind of reading. And here using a pointer to guide your eyes. So here, because you are reading a lengthy passage very fast, and that's why what do? You might skip lines, and therefore you say pointer is there. You make use of some pointer. Something like that. So this pointer will be guiding your eyes. Okay. So you will be reading, you will be employing these techniques while going for speed reading or fast reading. When you take up this fast reading or speed reading, you make use of these techniques. Okay, you read it pieces together. You make use of subvocalization, lip movement only will be there, and also you make use of the pointer to guide your eyes. So all these techniques you make use of while you are doing speed reading or fast reading, right? This type of reading comes to your rescue when you need to go through a large amount of material quickly. Whenever you are supposed to read a lengthy matter very quickly, this kind of reading will come to your rescue. This will help you very much. Okay, so this is all about speed reading or fast reading. SQ3R. SQ means yes, survey. Q means question. 3 R's are there. What are the 3 R's? Reading, writing, review. So these 3 are called 3 R's. Here you pay attention. Reading to improve comprehension and retention of material text is called SQ3R reading. So what is the SQ3R reading? Means reading some text to improve comprehension and retention. Comprehension, you know very well. Comprehension means understanding the subject is called comprehension. And retention means keeping all that matter in mind. That is called retention. You know very well. So for these two purposes, if you can read any text, that reading is called SQ3R reading. That's all. You go to the next point about it. It involves surveying the text, formulating questions, reading actively, reciting key points, and reviewing the material. So in this reading, you look at the whole text once and you formulate questions. You just compose your own questions on that particular passage, and you read actively. You read that passage very actively. Reciting key points, from that passage, you note down some important points or key points. Reviewing the material, you also review that material. So all kinds of things you are supposed to do in this kind of SQ3R reading. Okay, that is there. And the next point about this is, this type of reading helps when you studying textbooks. Okay, whenever you are studying textbooks, this kind of reading is very important. You take up any subject, you don't read the subject carelessly. While reading that matter, you just survey the text. That means, you take the meaning of the entire text first thing. You formulate questions, small questions, you formulate on your own, and then you read that entire passage actively. You choose some key points of that passage, and you review the whole material. All these things you do when you are reading your textbooks, okay, and preparing for examinations. So you read textbooks only for preparing examinations. This kind of reading will come to your rescue. Okay, and now let's move on to the next type of reading. Close reading is there. What is this close reading? Okay, let us look at that. Reading while understanding the deeper meaning and what structure of the text is called close reading. So close reading means what? Reading while understanding the deeper meaning of that, the inner meaning of that text, and also the structure of the text. Two things are there. So the deeper meaning and the structure, these two things are there. So when you read some passage, to understand the deeper meaning of that and the structure of that text, that kind of reading is called close reading. And here you pay attention, and it involves analysis of the text line by line. Okay, and it involves what? The analysis of the text line by line. If you want to understand the meaning of that Ozymandias, what did you do? You went for line by line meaning of that. Okay, if you want to understand the meaning of the poem The Cloud, written by P.B. Shelley, what do? You go for line by line meaning. Whenever you read that line by line, you understand the deeper meaning of that, the inner meaning of that. Generally, it takes place in the poetry and all that. Involves analysis of the text line by line, noting word choice, themes and literary devices. So this kind of activity will take place in understanding the poetry and all that. Okay, here you pay attention. This type of reading is usually resorted to when studying poetry. That's what I have been doing. While teaching you daffodils, while teaching you the nation's strength, whatever. I have taught so many poems. So for all of them, I have given them close reading, in-depth reading. And whenever I can understand the inner meaning of the poem, the deeper meaning of those lines and words, then only I can teach it wonderfully well. You can easily understand them. Not only myself, any teacher has to understand the deeper meaning of that poem. Okay, and here when studying poetry, literary criticism, complex prose also. Complex prose means, Swami Vivekananda's prose is there. It is somewhat complex. Jawaharlal Nehru's prose is also there. It is somewhat complex. Sri Aurobindo's prose is there. It is really very difficult. So you cannot understand the philosophical ideas behind that text. So when you happen to read such a difficult text, you have to go for close reading. Okay, otherwise you cannot understand the meaning of all those things. Okay, whenever you do all these things, then only you can understand the meaning of the poem, the literary criticism, the complex prose and all that. Okay, right. And now let's move on to the next one. Academic reading is there. So academic reading. What is this reading? Reading for the preparation of research papers and thesis. You know very well. Most of you must be doing MPhil or PhD. while preparing for the DS examination. Some of you may be doing PhDs or MPhil and all. So in those courses, you have to present papers, research papers, okay, and you have to prepare thesis. So that's why what do? You have to read various books and then only you will be able to prepare research papers and thesis. Okay, you have to sit in the library from the morning till the evening. You have to go through various kinds of books. You have to take down the notes. So you have to prepare the research papers and thesis. So that's only possible whenever you sit in the library hours together. Okay. So that kind of reading, okay, is called academic reading. So you are reading for the preparation of research papers, and that's why that kind of reading is called academic reading. Okay. And this type helps you when you read several scholarly articles. You want to prepare research papers or thesis, and therefore you are expected to read several scholarly articles. The articles written by various other scholars. You happen to go through them. You have to read all of them. You have to take down the notes because you are supposed to prepare the thesis or the research paper. So it is like that, to prepare a research paper or thesis. So for that purpose, if you can read, then that kind of reading is called academic reading. Now you go to other types of reading. Detailed reading is there. Okay, the title itself is telling you that the reading will take place in detail. Okay, right. And here, reading legal documents before signing is called detailed reading. This is a very important thing. Before signing the document, okay, how do you read the documents? You don't read the legal documents very carelessly, because every word, every point of that document is very important. So only after reading that legal document and after you are fully satisfied, then you go for signing. Until then you don't sign on that document. Okay, and that kind of reading is called detailed reading, right? And this helps you while reviewing a legal document, okay, or a contract. So you had made a contract with some company. Some legal documents will be there. Signing will be there. Okay, exchange of legal documents will be there. All these things must be done very carefully. Okay, and before signing, declaring that you agree to its terms and conditions and legal obligations outlined in them. Because before signing that document, you have to read them very carefully. And because once you sign on, that means you say that you agree to its terms and conditions and legal obligations. So that point is there, and you will be legally bound by that document. And if anything goes out of that contract or that legal document, the other person can go to the court and he will drag you to the court. So that's why just before signing that legal document, you have to read that document very carefully with meticulous care. So that kind of reading is called detailed reading, right? Reading aloud is there. Reading aloud. What is this reading aloud? Reading the bedtime stories aloud for children to make them more engaging and livelier is called reading aloud. This is very interesting. At bedtime, what happens? You read some stories for your kids, for your children. Even my grandson is there here in Atlanta, and he asked me to read minimum 3 stories for him. Be it the cat or from Panchatantra or some Lord Ganesha, some stories books are there with him, and he will bring 3 books, okay, small books, 5 pages, 6 pages. I have to read all of them, and listening to those stories, he will go to bed. That's all. So how do I read? I read all those stories aloud. And sometimes I will, enact the, you can say, dialogues also. Pete the cat is there. So in that I'll be enacting the dialogues spoken by some characters of that story. So I'll enact that. I'll read it aloud. And listening to those stories, the children, the kids will go to bed. So for reading bedtime stories only, we employ this kind of reading. That's called reading aloud. This helps in reading a bedtime story to a child in order to make the story more engaging and livelier. If you can read the story aloud, what happens now? but the child feels that the story is lovelier for him and it is more engaging for him, and listening to that sweet story he will go to bed. That is there, right? So, and now let's move on to other types of reading. Previewing is there. Previewing. What is this previewing? It's also a type of reading. Previewing means what? Before starting to read a book or a novel or a story, okay, reading its back cover text. Let me say, before reading a novel, take for granted, a story, big story. Before starting to read a novel, what do? You just read the back cover text. You read the back cover text, because on the back cover what happens now, the story of that novel or that book is given very briefly in a nutshell. Okay, and the table of contents, you also see the table of contents. Okay, a few sample pages, you also read that novel here and there. You open the book at random, 45th page, 60th page, 90th page, like that. You open the book at random and you read here and there, okay, some of the story, and if you feel it is very interesting, if you feel it is very good, then only you buy that and you start reading that. So that kind of thing is there. Okay, that kind of reading is called previewing, and this helps you in selecting a new novel. In the bookstore, no, you want to buy some novel. How do you buy that novel? Do you buy that novel as you please on seeing that book itself? No, you just look at you take that novel, you look at the pages, okay, table of contents, back our story, and about the writer, all these things you read. It's a preliminary reading. This is called previewing, right? Rereading is there. Rereading, the title itself tells you the meaning of that. Reading the difficult text for the second time is called rereading. See, generally what happens, so certain texts will be somewhat difficult, somewhat tough for understanding. So therefore, you give second reading to that passage. So that second reading, reading something again is called rereading. For example, you have read the poem Ozymandias. For the first time, you have not understood anything about that poem. What do? Then you go for the second reading. Even if you don't understand, the second time also, what do? You go for third time, fourth time. So like that, that is called rereading. So rereading, reading the difficult text, not only the difficult text, anything, poem or any important text. Okay, if at all it is difficult, you go for the second time reading, right? That is called rereading, right? And this is used to grasp the concepts of a dense philosophical text. So this kind of rereading is done only to grasp the concepts of that philosophical text. Okay, the inner meaning of that text, the deeper meaning of that text, because that passage itself is somewhat difficult for you to understand. So there is nothing wrong in reading that passage again and again and again, isn't it? It's okay. Right. Now you move on to other types of reading. Proofreading is there. Very simple. Reading to check spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, ensuring the final polished and error-free version is called proofreading. So proofreading means it's nothing but reading some passage to check for spelling mistakes, okay, and grammatical errors, whether there are any grammatical errors, whether there are any spelling mistakes, okay. Why do we do that? Means to ensure the polished and error-free version. So if you want that passage to be polished and error-free, you will go for this proofreading. After writing an essay, what do? You go through it again, so as to find out the spelling mistakes or grammatical errors, so as to make that passage error-free and more polished. It might look more polished and very good and all that. A good writer will always check his passages, check his writings for spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. Okay, you too can do that now. Okay, here that type of reading is called proofreading, right? And here this is done before you submit an essay for a school assignment. You have written a school assignment. So before you submit that assignment to the teacher, what do? You check it for spelling mistakes and grammatical errors, because you want your assignment to be error free and polished and much better and all that. Okay, and you go to the next one. Silent reading is there. So the title itself tells you what it is about. Okay, silent reading means reading silently. Reading silently so as not to disturb others is called silent reading. Okay, reading any subject, any topic silently is called silent reading. And in this reading, what are you doing? You are not trying to disturb others. Generally, this kind of reading will take place in the libraries, or whenever you are among so many people, you don't read it aloud. You read it silently. So that's called silent reading. The purpose of this silent reading is not to disturb others. Very simple. Now we move on to other types of reading. 18th one, interactive reading is there. Reading an online article while clicking on hyperlinks to explore related topics, leaving comments, participating in discussions is called interactive reading. This is a very important type of reading. So you are not reading an article in the textbook or in any book in front of you, but you are reading an online article. What are you doing while reading that online article? You are clicking on hyperlinks. You will also get other links, okay, and explore related topics, okay, leaving comments. You also write your comments. You also participate in the discussions. So doing all these things, if you can read, that reading is called interactive reading. Okay, very simple. And here this type is made use of while participating in online discussions. Generally in online discussions this kind of reading will take place in order to make the reading experience more dynamic and engaging. So this kind of reading is done only online, and in order to make the reading experience more dynamic and engaging. So that kind of reading looks fantastic and all that, right? And you go to the 19th one, reading for pleasure. So the title itself tells you what it is about, and here you pay attention. Reading some story or some novel to while away the time is called reading for pleasure. You read some novel, you read some story. Earlier, a few years ago, people used to read Swati or some other story books, they used to read novels. Especially in Andhra, I found so many bookstores, because, I happened to visit Rajamandri and Guntur several times for valuation of papers in those days. So I used to find, at every corner of the street, there used to be a pawn shop. In that pawn shop or in that Killiko to something, there the novels are being given on rent and all that. So people would take those novels and start reading. So reading habit is more in Andhra region comparatively in Telangana. Okay. So whenever you read some story, some novel, to while away means to spend time happily. To spend time happily. Whenever you happen to read a novel or a story to while away the time, that kind of reading is called reading for pleasure. Right. This is done when you read your favorite fantasy novel on a lazy Sunday afternoon. On a Sunday afternoon, what do? You eat mutton biryani, chicken biryani, something you eat and you relax, taking up some novel, some book. Enjoy reading that novel. That is there. And just for the sheer enjoyment. So for that purpose, they used to read, and that kind of reading is therefore called reading for pleasure. Now let's move on to other types of reading. 20th one, efferent reading. Okay, very simple and easy. Reading to understand instructions given for assembling furniture or for the preparation of some recipe. So you ordered some table from IKEA, and that table is delivered to you, and if you open that package, you find the instruction manual. What do? You have to go through that manual very carefully, otherwise you cannot assemble that table properly. So reading to understand instructions, or for the preparation of some recipe, you want to prepare some chicken biryani or mutton biryani, mutton something. So some instructions are given. You have to listen to them carefully. You have to read all those instructions carefully. Otherwise, your chicken biryani will become mutton biryani or some other biryani. Okay, right. And that's why reading to understand instruction is called efferent reading. Efferent reading. And here, pay attention. This type helps in reading a manual for assembling furniture so as to complete the task effectively. So that you can build the table, that you can mount the TV on wall. There are several things, So you can do it yourself. Do it yourself. Do it yourself things are also available on Amazon. So when you buy such things, some instruction manual will be there. You have to go through them scrupulously. Otherwise, you cannot do it successfully. Okay. And that kind of reading is called efferent reading. And now you go to the last type of reading. Aesthetic reading is there. Aesthetic means pertaining to beauty. That is called aesthetic. This is the meaning of this one. And here you pay attention. Reading to enjoy, appreciate a poem is called aesthetic reading. Whenever you happen to read some poem, to enjoy that, to appreciate that, then that kind of reading is called aesthetic reading. Okay, this type of reading helps in enjoying various poems. You read for appreciating the beauty, imagery, emotional impact it has on you. Why do you read the poems? You read only for joy, okay? Only to enjoy and appreciate a poem. And you want to see the beauty of the poem, the imagery of the poem, the emotional impact the poem has thrown on you. To see all those things, you read that poem. So, reading poems for enjoyment and appreciation is called aesthetic reading. Okay, that is there. So, with this, the types of reading will come to an end. Okay, and now we are going to do some small exercise on this small topic. Okay, and it is very disappointing to note that most of you are not doing the exercise that I am giving at the end of every video. Okay, so this is very disappointing to me and very frustrating to me. Do you know one thing? I take a lot of time in the preparation of those questions and answers and all that. If you can do it successfully, that means you have understood this topic thoroughly well. If you cannot do that, it means you have not understood this topic, these things thoroughly well. So for that purpose only, the test is being given at the end of every video. Okay, now I'm going to give you the exercise. Please try to answer all the questions, and before you answer the questions, you must watch this video again and again till you understand. If you cannot understand anything, here I am. Send your problems to me, and in the comment section, I'm ready to answer all of them. When I am here, I am helping you sincerely and honestly and selflessly. Why don't you make use of my services? I'm very sorry for that, please. Okay, and now let's move on to solve the exercise. Multiple choice questions on types of reading. I only read the question and also the options given under that. You have to choose the right answer. And after doing this exercise, after answering all these questions, you check your answers with the answers given at the end of this exercise, and then decide whether you are able to answer them or not correctly. Okay, that's very important. If you cannot, again you watch this video. Please try to understand my anguish, and now let us do this exercise. What is skimming? Reading every word carefully, reading quickly to get the main ideas, reading aloud, reading for detailed comprehension. What is scanning? Reading for entertainment, reading to find specific information, reading from start to finish, reading to understand the tone of the text. Okay, you can easily answer these questions if you can watch this video thoroughly well. What type of reading involves evaluating the text structure and content? Skimming, critical reading, intensive reading, extensive reading. What is intensive reading? Reading for pleasure, reading for detailed understanding, reading multiple books quickly, reading only headlines. What is extensive reading? Reading a large number of texts for general understanding, reading one text very carefully, reading aloud in a group, reading only summaries. What is an example of reading for specific information? Reading a novel, reading a recipe, reading a poem, reading a travel guide for general information. Which type of reading is used to find a particular fact or piece of information in a text? Intensive reading, extensive reading, skimming, scanning. What is meant by critical reading? Reading quickly to get an overview, analyzing and evaluating the text, reading for leisure, reading aloud. What type of reading would you use to get a quick overview of a book? Intensive reading, scanning, skimming, critical reading. What is the primary purpose of reading comprehension? To memorize the text, to understand the meaning of the text, to read as fast as possible, to find specific information quickly. Which type of reading involves reading a text multiple times to gain a deeper understanding? Extensive reading, skimming, intensive reading, scanning. What type of reading is best for academic study? Skimming, scanning, intensive reading, extensive reading. What is the purpose of leisure reading? To gain specific information, to analyze the structure of the text, to enjoy and entertain oneself, to critique the author's style. Critique means criticize. Which reading strategy would be most effective for quickly finding a phone number in a directory? Intensive reading, skimming, scanning, extensive reading. What is the main goal of reading a textbook for a class? To skim for main ideas, to scan for specific information, to read intensively for detailed understanding, to read extensively for general knowledge. What is the primary goal of speed reading? To read every word slowly and carefully, to increase reading speed without losing comprehension, to analyze the text's themes in depth, to read aloud clearly. Which type of reading would you use to quickly review an article's main points before a meeting? Intensive reading, scanning, skimming, critical reading. What type of reading would be most beneficial when preparing for a debate? Leisure reading, skimming, intensive reading, extensive reading. What is the primary purpose of reading fiction? To gather specific data, to analyze factual information, to entertain and engage the reader, to read quickly without comprehension. Which reading strategy is best for understanding complex scientific texts? Skimming, scanning, intensive reading, speed reading. Okay. The primary goal of critical reading is to memorize content, enjoy the story, identify specific facts, evaluate and interpret the text. Which of the following is not a characteristic of intensive reading? Focus on vocabulary, in-depth comprehension, fast reading, detailed analysis. Okay, with this small exercise comes to an end, and now we are going to see the answers. Okay, see, these are the answers for the questions from 1 to 10. Okay. These are the answers for the questions from 11 to 22. Okay. With this small video comes to an end. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hello, dear DSC candidates. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any problem in understanding any of the points I have dealt with in this video, please mention it in the comment section. Okay. And with another beautiful video, I shall be back to you. Until then, bye. See you, all of you. Right.